Hi, I'm Gavin Dunaway from AdMonsters. Yes, I am replacing Rob Beeler, who is the content czar of AdMonsters. I promise to be worthy. I'll see what I can do. So AdMonsters itself is a trade publication as well as a conference company. We put on a number of conferences every year, including our publisher forums, and we actually had Laura speak about local, hyper-local marketing issues at the last one. Had a wonderful, hour-long conversation. Granted, there was beer, and that always makes the conversations more lively. So was everyone feeling lubricated up, a little pepped up, coffee, ready to go? That did not sound like you were ready to go. Okay, well, he's gonna have to speak for all of you. So anyway, let us start by just saying, measurement is a bitch. It is a royal pain in the ass. Whenever I hear the term ROI, I just want to bang my head against a wall. I mean, we've got this cool mobile technology, and shouldn't brands and advertisers just be jumping at it like, oh yeah, I want some of that? But no, they want metrics. But metrics is something that we love at AdMonsters because AdMonsters is all about publisher ad operations people, and it's something that I personally pay a lot of attention to, writing about mobile IDs and such. And I was really excited to lead this panel because it's a fantastic group of people together today, really diverse, and I would like them to introduce themselves. If we go one by one, please tell me your name, your position, give me an idea of your day-to-day activities, and just to humor me on this. What's your favorite location-based mobile app?
Well, in your program, I'm Ann Benton-Cohn, but I promise you I'm not Ann. My name is Lee Karchawer. I'm the National Sales Manager for Placecast. We are a 6-year-old company. We set out to help brands reach consumers on their mobile phone when they're located inside geofences that we create around physical locations. Last year in 2012, $4 trillion was spent in retail, and 95% of that is still happening inside of stores versus online. So a huge percentage of transactions are still happening in stores. So we really set out to help brands figure out a way to leverage mobile as a way to drive customers in store. And as far as my favorite location-based mobile app, I would have to say, being a big sports fan, I'm a big fan of Fanatic. So if anybody has the Fanatic app, it actually lets you find local bars and places where people are actually watching the game and for your favorite team.
Your team? Oh, I could use that.
Hey everybody, Duncan McCall, co-founder and CEO of a company called PlaceIQ. We're about 3.5 years old. We're actually headquartered in New York. We're about 70 people. And primarily what we do is we're really an audience company. We use location data to understand, infer intent, and all sorts of other behaviors about consumers. We started out life more of a geospatial company. We're sort of a data and platform play, if you think of it that way, and we're best known for one of our big monetization markets, which is mobile advertising. We do a lot of things in other markets now as well. So we're big believers and supporters in the power of location, sort of horizontally. So with that, thinking about my favorite location-based mobile app, I'm kind of torn between Gowalla, Brightkite, and Looped, but so if you get that joke. The reason I say that is because I think, I look at my phone and there's no app, right? There's a location-based app. The device, the operating system is location-aware. So I look at my browser, it's location-aware. I look at my camera, it's a location-aware app. I look at, Facebook, all the news, my note-taking app, my reminder app. All of those now are using location. So I think, location-based apps was kind of like 3 years ago. Now we're in this world of location is this foundational operating system, and when it comes to mobile, it's hooked into everything. So for me, they're all my favorites.
Hello everyone, I'm Carolyn Eckhaus. I work at Mapquest. I'm the head of data management and analytics. I've been with Mapquest for 3 months, so I'm very excited to be here at the conference. Of course, my favorite app, it has to be Mapquest, because that's just silly, because it's the best app out there for location. But it's kind of very exciting what we're doing at Mapquest. We're kind of changing things up a little. Everyone knows that Mapquest has been around for a long time, but we're changing things, and we have some new and exciting things, so more to come shortly, but we're very excited. And by the way, data is sexy. Hello? Anybody who works with data knows it's sexy.
Data's sexy and it knows it. Okay, great. Or they know it, actually. But Anyway, so let's my favorite mobile app, I'm addicted to Yelp wherever I go. I don't comment or anything, I just follow it. It tells me where the bars are, and that's all that matters.
Mapquest does that too, you know.
All right. I will download later. Let's just break it down right from the start. When it comes to location-based KPIs, I mean, what are you guys seeing are the most effective? What drive the most interest? Who wants to jump on that?
So I try not to do too much self-promotion, but so if you think of location-based KPIs, right, there's a whole bunch of things to think about. So I think the easiest thing to focus on, if you think about marketing, the world of mobile, the world of location, a KPI can be, did a consumer arrive at a certain location? And that clearly isn't key for everything, but as you're saying, there's a tremendous amount of retail takes place in the physical world. So knowing if I've messaged a consumer and they've ended up at a retail location, that's probably pretty interesting. If I've messaged a consumer and they've ended up at my auto lot, that's probably pretty key. If I've messaged a consumer and they've ended up at my luxury resort and I've seen them there for 3 days, that's a pretty good demonstrator of success. So for us, we sort of took this challenge head on last year. We had a big retailer ask us, hey, is there any way you can attribute mobile advertising to physical in-store visits? So we built this KPI, which was first to market, called Place Visit Rate. The idea of attributing mobile advertising, being this location-aware medium, to actual physical in-store visits. So this device that I messaged subsequently showed up within the physical building footprint of a retailer. I don't need to know who that consumer is. I don't need to, violate their privacy in any way. This is opted information we're using to uncover metrics. So for us, there's many other things. We can talk about those as well. But for us, the idea of using location as a strong indicator for success in terms of an advertising campaign has served us extremely well. And I think is now starting to serve the broader industry well. Google, about 2 weeks ago, came out and said they're going to do a similar thing. Millennials are doing a similar thing now as well. So I think that's becoming a really powerful trend.
And just to add to that, so we power a number of programs that we partner directly with some of the major carriers. So here in the US, AT&T, Rogers in Canada, Telefonica in Europe. And we provide offer programs for retailers and brands to actually help them get customers into store with an offer or deal. And one of the areas are key performance indicators that we're kind of seeing across the board, where applicable, are brands that are actually able to take a promo code or a barcode, put it into a message to a consumer who's near a store, and then actually track how many people are redeeming at the store level. So that's one area. We also, from a performance perspective, kind of look at a hybrid approach. So we try to provide attitudinal research as well. So we've built consumer panels. So a lot of companies are starting to offer, similar to what you've seen online with Insight Express studies, but things that you do through mobile, whether it's through email survey or mobile survey of a panel of consumers, and actually ask them questions. Did you visit a store? Did you make a purchase? Did this increase your purchase intent? Would you recommend this to a friend? Performance indicators like that.
So Carolyn, you're a bit more on the consumer-driven side. I mean, and so what metrics do you see that really tell you, that really give you insight? We'll put it as simple as that.
So what we look at, we kind of create a measurement strategy, and then within the strategy, we kind of look at 3 different areas. Obviously, engagement's always like one of the top things that we look at. But specifically, one layer deeper than engagement is different activities should have different weights. Not every activity should be rated the same. So what we do is we kind of create an Uber engagement metric, and then under that, kind of rank it, and we actually use statistical modeling to see which one is more important. So then when we talk to our product managers, we're like, for example, like the print button, you're like, well, why would print be so important? Well, print is for different types of, if you wanted to actually print out the map. So we kind of look at things differently in the sense of we want to make sure that every different type of activity on the site, as well as the mobile app, actually has attributable information on it.
Very interesting. So,
and then, I'm sorry, one last thing, and then obviously we always look at ROI at the end. We got to map it back. So yes, we do look at engagement, but that's not the only thing that we look at.
Cool. So tying this data across channels, sometimes it seems like it's very straightforward. Like, you can tell directly from a coupon, hey, you redeemed the coupon on your mobile, you must have used that device. Hey, that's pretty obvious. When is it less obvious? When can you? When is it more difficult to kind of tie your advertising efforts to offline purchases?
Well, so I think if you look at, I think it's getting easier. If you look at, for example, Facebook and Twitter and others, they have partnerships with folks like Datalogics who aggregate up huge amounts of retail purchase data. And Facebook has made a very big push in there, and I think it's doing pretty well with that. Obviously, I think there's softer metrics, right? You're thinking about brand, and so even though bulk data exists in prevalence, so bulk vehicle registration data, you can run a campaign, you can start to tie that back to devices, and you can see that people physically buy cars. I don't see people really doing that at scale yet. So the way I look at it, but not everything is going to be measurable, right? So we have this concept of the world that everything is measurable, and we know that advertising is not necessarily about only measuring retail sales, right? The definition of marketing is not necessarily selling more products, right? It can be creating a fantastic brand, a halo effect, word of mouth, a whole bunch of other things that are very hard to measure in terms of looking at, pure dollars. I think the other thing that we've seen is even when you can tie things back to actual measurement, that's not to say that the brands, the agencies are ready to do that because they've been thinking in this traditional sense for so long. We had a fantastic example whereby we're working with a QSR and we're talking to their teams and talking about KPIs and saying, hey, we can tell you how many of your consumers that we message end up physically going into your store. And look, if you're in a QSR, a quick service restaurant, you're not browsing, right? You're buying the product, so it's a pretty close metric for success. And they kind of looked back to us and they said, well, but our KPI is social shares. I'm like, wait, social shares? And then you realize, well, they've spent a long time getting their head around, in the absence of measurement, we have to, set our strategy. There could be a multi-year strategy around something else. So to your point, I think actually one of the challenges is just momentum in the industry, and in this reality that things are measurable now, it doesn't necessarily mean that businesses' processes are set up to change to measurability as their new KPI.
Interesting.
Yeah, and one of the, I think, biggest challenges that we're seeing right now with measurement, especially is happening on the consumer brand side, so brands that sell their products across multiple retailers. So you take a brand like Kraft or Procter & Gamble where they sell inside of Target, Walgreens, Walmart, and being able to actually provide the consumer with something measurable that they can take into any one of those various retailers on their mobile device becomes a challenge because of all the various point of sale systems that exist across those retailers. So we've actually done some work. We're working with a shopper marketing agency called Lunchbox, and they developed a program called Elite Receipt. And feel free to take a look at it. It's elite-receipt.com. And the way that this works is consumers can actually go into a store. They're incentivized with an offer to, purchase a set number of products at a Walmart. They can then scan their receipt using the service, and this is actually a web-enabled application, so you can access it from any mobile phone on the mobile web. You buy a product, you scan the receipt, and then you actually earn rewards points through that platform that then you can then redeem for $5 gift cards at Walmart or various rewards. So kind of looking at taking everything off of the POS system and creating a simplified way for consumers to still be able to get rewarded for an offer or deal when they're near a store.
So I also think, too, a lot more companies are using personalization and segmentation versus actually trying to tie it back to an actual consumer. So what we're starting to realize is it's okay that you can't tie an individual person to all of their activities. You could still create performance and really understand the consumer by looking at a type of group of consumers that have different type of activities and engagement, as well as visits, visitors, et cetera. So I think that's kind of changed the landscape over the last couple of years, because working with big data is very hard, right? Because you have to chunk through all of this information very quickly and to make it useful to your senior managers, et cetera, who's actually making a difference. So what we decided to do is really start looking at segments of consumers and then understanding how we want to make differences. And really one of the big things that's kind of relatively new in the mobile space is really talk to the consumers. I know years ago a lot of people actually did that, but they're kind of, and it took a kind of a hiatus like a couple years ago. When you actually talk to the consumers, they'll tell you what they like about your product. They're very clear, and then understand why they stopped using your app. So they don't want to not give you the information. They want to make your app as best as possible if you just ask them the question.
Well, they are pretty much already opting in. I mean, you know, and I can't tell you how many times I get asked to rate this or that app. So you guys are both of your companies tie your metrics back to panel data, right? No?
Yes.
Panel data? No, we don't do any panel data.
But Lee, you do.
Yeah, we use panel data. So we, in addition to doing mobile display app.
Oh, you done broke it.
Talking too much, sorry. So in addition to doing mobile display advertising, we also power a program called Shop Alerts, which is an opt-in location-based consumer program for brands, as well as programs that I mentioned before we run with carriers and financial service companies. So this is where a consumer is actually signing up and opting in directly to a program or a brand to receive offers or messages on their phone when they're on the go. And what we do is, across all these different programs, is we build consumer panels. So from the total opt-in database, we'll take a panel of consumers and then periodically survey them on various questions, as I mentioned earlier, around, you know, did you visit a store, did you purchase, did the message you receive actually lead to, you know, a transaction that happened in the store or a recommendation to a friend. So this is all data that we sort of compile and we've aggregated, and we've done a lot of Harris Poll surveys as well. So over the last 4 years, we've actually looked at how consumer behavior has changed as it relates to location-based mobile. So it's kind of interesting to see the increase in just receptivity to mobile advertising and more consumers making their location available through these various apps or through these various channels.
I think so.
Yeah, no, and so I think a panel approach is certainly one approach, a valid approach, and has been used by the industry a tremendous amount. I think we've taken a slightly different approach whereby, you know, we believe in the power of, hey, we now live in this world whereby there's, you know, 50% of everybody in this country is running around with smartphones. They're opted in to share location data. So instead of, you know, asking a small percentage of them, there might be a buyer sample. Hey, what do you think? Did you go here? There are some opportunities, and location is one of them, whereby you can start to say, hey, so for example, the retail campaign that we have a case study on our website that we actually measured around about 4.5 million devices over about 3 months that we messaged to with specific targeted advertising, and we can see how many of those went into the physical retailer, the physical footprint of that retailer, and then we did a control whereby we looked at the same sample size in the same market, so, you know, open sample, 4.5 million users, and we found that people who'd seen the ad visited the store with a frequency of about 46% higher than the control. We were at JD Power 2 weeks ago talking about a similar one in auto, whereby we saw about 100% uplift. People that were messaged throughout the consumer journey ended up going to a car lot with, you know, twice the frequency of people who didn't. So you look at those things, and we feel that, you know, there's now enough data to actually measure this kind of behavior. Now, it doesn't measure sentiment, things like that. So our approach has been, let's use the data we've got with no modeling, no metrics. It's just pure data to be able to say more people visited your retail site. And again, that's not perfect for everything, but if it's a retailer or a travel site or visiting a state for tourism, those are very strong metrics for success, and that's how we approach that problem.
That's kind of interesting. I wanted to go back to, Carolyn, we were having an interesting discussion earlier about when you're feeding data into helping out your ad team, you look at different metrics for different types of companies, like CPG versus like a retailer. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So really what we try to do is, there's not, for metrics specifically or KPIs, there's not a one-size-fits-all. So depending upon our advertiser, we actually might provide different types of information and different data, as well as different KPIs, because what we've learned is if you always look at one metric, such as click-through rate, this might not work for every single advertiser that you're working with, right? Some actually just want impressions. We don't know why, but some just want impressions still. As we all know, that's kind of like the biggest joke, right? It's kind of like in the mobile world, mobile visits or visits in the .com world. But, so what we really tried to do is understand the business questions that they were trying to answer and then provide the KPIs as well as diagnostic measurements that can allow them to make good decisions and work with us in the future.
Interesting. Now, kind of going back to what Duncan was talking about, how can we use mobile devices and the data you're collecting really to understand when best to market to customers?
Yeah, so I mean, that's one of the cores of one of our basic products, right, is for us, location isn't just about proximity, the idea that somebody's near your Carlisle store. Location is a way to understand behaviors, and those behaviors allow you, with real texture and detail, to define a consumer journey. So you think of that automotive example, we're not just targeting people on Carlisle so people buy Carlisles, we're saying let's look at behaviors that are exhibited by the location histories of devices that have been opted in to be able to say, hey, we see devices that are in family moments. Maybe they're shopping at malls, they're at amusement parks, they're at beaches, etc. Let's start to message those with very much an awareness creative about the attributes of a vehicle as it pertains to those particular use cases. Let's find devices that dwell in residential areas that we know are in market because we have the physical vehicle registration. Now let's start to message those slightly differently. So imagine this funnel of the consumer journey, right? Awareness, consideration, and now maybe you have a consumer that you've seen on a competitor's car lot recently. Well, now let's start to message them differently. And then at the bottom of this consumer journey, you've got this construct of now perhaps somebody is on our site. So to your point, if you understand that consumer journey and you can see these consumers throughout this consumer journey, you can start to do some pretty interesting things. You can message them with a relevant, respectful creative based upon where they are, where they've been, their behavior, but you can message them at the right time. If I see a consumer in the mode of work, probably a bad time to show them a video ad, self-play video ad, right? If I see a consumer, maybe they're at the DMV or the dentist, that might be a time that I could engage them with more of a rich media ad. So the idea of once you understand location, you understand this consumer journey, you understand a brand's objective, you now have the ammunition to be able to craft a really intelligent campaign that involves messaging people at the right time with the right type of creative. And look, I know that's the magical myth of advertising, so I'm not going to present it as a silver bullet, but the tools are now available to enable you to start to do that.
That's interesting. And can I follow up with you, like, what methods are you using to understand that consumer when they come into they come in your direction?
How do you mean, what methods?
I mean, what tells you about where they are in the funnel?
So imagine, for example, right? So, I mean, the basics obviously is a mobile ad request arrives with location. You maybe have seen that mobile ad request before, the unique device that's associated with that. You may understand who they are. You can understand where they dwell residentially. There you can associate vehicle registration data. You might say, I've seen this device on a golf course. I've seen this device business traveling. Now I can build up an understanding of who this consumer is. So now I understand this consumer. Now I understand how to, so if I see they're a high value consumer and they dwell in an area that has 2 luxury SUVs registered there, I might want to treat them differently than the consumer that dwells in an area that is not like that. And to be clear, we're not trying to understand individuals looking for trends. We're building profiles. This is opted-in data. We're not tracking individuals. We're not keeping lat longs. We're building behavioral profiles from location. So if you look at that, hopefully that answers your question a little bit. Those are some of the things that allow you to understand a consumer in a much more high fidelity way.
Cool. Anyone, did you want to?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think, expanding on what Duncan said, it's really just using Place as a way to, places have profiles. There's a variety of attributes that can be assigned to a particular place, and those attributes can actually change with time. So you take Madison Square Garden on the night of a Knicks game, the audience that's there is very different than when it's a Lady Gaga concert. So being able to understand what's happening in a place, who's there, what is the weather of that location. So we've done a variety of campaigns that actually pull in weather. So we did a campaign with Starbucks in the UK where, depending on the temperature, we actually changed it to a hot or cold beverage. So being able to really not just understand where a physical location is, and as Duncan mentioned, a consumer's close to the store, being able to actually layer in something that's relevant to the consumer and personalize that message.
That is very, very cool. And I'll give a personal plug with AdMonsters. Back over the summer, I wrote a 2-part series about device IDs and the future of targeting. I certainly suggest, to get a better idea of how device IDs work, it's a pretty nice piece. I'll tweet it later. You can find me at AdMonster Gavin. Anyway, so we're running a little low on time here, but I want to also ask you, I think we've started answering this question, but let's go out and say it. Is couponing the be-all and end-all of location-based marketing?
Yeah, so I would answer that with, is it the year of mobile, right? I mean, couponing is kind of like the mythical unicorn of 10 years ago, location-based services, and so I'm sure there are some great companies being very successful offering people coupons when they are nearby, but I think the industry has evolved tremendously since that original vision of sort of grappling onto a use case that the common person could understand. And like I said, I think just location is an operating system, right? I think that the earlier first presentation, you think of the M7 processor, right? You think of wearables, you think of persistent location, you think of Wi-Fi, you think of indoor location. I mean, location is just this. We are all physical beings. We live in the physical world. This world is painted with data now, and that data is always changing dynamically. We have these devices with us all the time that we're constantly checking that are location aware, and now we have hooked into the operating system of those devices, the location, the context of that location, and we're in the early days, but you see that is now getting pushed through in just, go to your iPhone and look into location services and look at all the apps that use location. I mean, it's just a persistent part of this, and I think we see this now coming through to the web. The web is location aware. Some people choose to use it, some people don't, right? Every single website can pull in your accurate location if you're connected to Wi-Fi. So I believe that, couponing was something that people threw up on a slide 10 years ago. Nothing wrong with couponing and location, but we're at the beginning of this, fundamental transformation whereby location and location context is going to make people's lives better and smarter, and is going to make advertisers hopefully build better, closer relationships with their consumers.
Well, and I think you guys might have to say a bit more about that, because you released the PlaceID app. I'm sorry, the PlaceAd.
Yeah, so we offer a variety of services across the purchase funnel. Obviously, couponing is a major part for a lot of brands as a way to actually take somebody into the store and drive an action. It's incentivizing the consumer when they're close by. But we also see a lot of brands sort of at the top end of the funnel looking at creative ways to use location and drive powerful brand engagement or experiential type of a message. So we did a campaign with the Got Milk board where they actually were promoting drinking chocolate milk after you exercise, because it has all the amino acids and everything that you need to refuel after your workout. So what we did with them is we actually geofenced places where people were active, so gyms, recreation centers, parks, basketball courts, and they did a mobile video campaign where they actually drove people to a mobile landing page that was optimized and had a mobile video which had professional athletes talking about the benefits of exercise, nutrition, and drinking chocolate milk. And we actually saw, we did a attitudinal research study with that campaign. We saw a lift by 38% in purchase intent for chocolate milk, as well as 96% ad recall. So it's definitely kind of an interesting way to tie in where a consumer is, what they happen to be doing, with what your creative campaign messaging is. So it's more than just couponing.
Cool stuff. We got about 10 minutes left. I was curious if anybody might have some questions for our group. Anybody at all? I mean,
somebody's got to ask why data is sexy. That was the headline of the show. Come on, somebody. Yes.
So you talked about using things where there aren't any kind of. You guys, is it on? Good. Yeah, we can talk. Now it's on. You talked about delivering services in an area where none of the personally identifiable information is actually collected. Yet there are plenty of apps out there where people are identifying themselves voluntarily. does that offer up another kind of bevy of services or data analysis points that you can look into?
Yeah, so for us, we've chosen currently to steer clear of PII. So if you take, for example, the idea that somebody might pass their, an application, first name, last name, maybe home address or something like that, and that might come through in an ad request or come through for a partnership. We don't use that data. We've made a conscious decision not to, and there's plenty of people that do use that, and I think there's, my personal opinion is I don't think that's a massively problematic area, but there's a lot of sensitivity around it. So if you take, the likes of an Experian, or they'll happily use that data to do a match against many other different data sets. So for us personally, we use, the signal of location and our deep understanding of locations to build profiles. We don't necessarily delta that directly to that PII, but I think as the industry evolves and as consumers feel that there's the value exchange and all the usual cliches, I think that people will be more comfortable with sharing their personal information. But my judgment is we haven't crossed that mythical gray line yet.
So for Mapquest, yes, we do, but obviously the consumers opted in to share their information, so then we do kind of communicate to them because they opted to have the communication. So then we'll try to figure out exactly the type of information that they'd like to receive. And obviously honor their wishes of not, whenever they tend to opt out, we honor that.
Very interesting. Do we have more? So let me, that gray line, crossing that, I find this very interesting myself, and especially something like Experian, they just acquired the 41st parameter, which is the home of ad truth. So I'm curious when they might start jumping in that. I mean, do you have any estimates of when that gray line might come, or you really think it's just completely up in the air at this point?
Oh, I mean, I think so it's an interesting question, right? I don't. It's a gray line, so maybe some people think we're there and crossed it. I think everybody has to make their own determination. Clearly, some people do think that. I mean, we touched on it sort of a little bit earlier. I truly think that. Exactly what you would imagine. I believe there's a narrative which has been an easy narrative, an understandable narrative that the media has jumped onto, which is location, mobile applications. Oh my God, they're stealing our data, and that's somehow bad and it's creepy. And and if I get on my soapbox, which I'll try not to, about this whole thing, I kind of look at that stuff and I say, so when was the last time that an ad tech company actually took somebody's data and did something nefarious with it? How many people ended up in physical harm because of that, right? You're going to think of it as an example now, but I think that, and you look, and then you look at this. So a couple of things: have we ever really articulated a very clear value proposition to consumers why we want to do this? No. Is advertising still pretty crappy on mobile devices? Yes. Is it cut and paste from online? Is it flashing banners mostly for app downloads? Yes. When we start to do that, and when we focus on the consumer value prop, I believe that will begin to change. And I also think that the industry does a very poor job of co-opting the media to be able to say, stop with this narrative of creepy and invasion, which is a lazy man's way of covering this whole industry. I know there's a speaker coming on later, but I think politicians have grabbed onto this as well because it's a nice, easy emotive subject, victimless crime. But I also think in the background, I look at this and I look at the whole NSA stuff and the Snowden stuff. I think it's been great for our industry because this idea that, hey, these nasty ad tech companies are somehow stealing your data to build up profiles that is going to affect you later in life. We all know that's not true. And the reality is the guys who are plugged into the backbone of the system doing this is the NSA. And so I think it's actually said, this isn't the concern, this is the real story, this is the real problem. Stop having this narrative over here. So that doesn't answer your question, but I think when those things come together, I feel in the next few years, we will be over that, that mythical gray line.
No, I agree with you on the NSA. I think it's taken some fire off of ad tech companies, and not a bad way. Do we have any more questions? Or yes.
Oh, so there's a good controversial question.
It's off the record.
I'll let you guys have that one.
Jeez, that is a very, very good question. So how can I answer that in a PC way? Let me think for about 15 minutes. So look, I think back to my earlier joke about Bright Kite and Loop. I think Foursquare are a tremendous early innovator in the space, right? They did an amazing job of getting people to think about location and mobile together. I think it's not my personal opinion, but it's a lot of people's opinion that was kind of a transitional spot, right? This idea of checking in at places. It was a very singular dimensional use of location. I think it has a great use case, but I think, look, if I'm running Foursquare, I think it's very challenging to grow a consumer app business and to grow revenues off that business at the same time. They're obviously aggressively pursuing that. They're a incredibly highly valued company, which makes that very challenging. Honestly, what I would do to grow revenues is I would actually go back and I would focus on that consumer experience. I don't believe taking on Yelp is the way to do that. I don't believe discovery is the way to do that. I think they need to go back to their roots and rethink the thing that set them on fire originally, which was a new paradigm for location and mobile. And I think I would tear that whole thing up, start again, relaunch it, and use that brand to get some buzz in a completely new way. I wouldn't try and refine my way through an incredibly competitive, almost mature field of Yelp and Google. I think that's really difficult, but that's probably going to get me in trouble for saying that. But that's my opinion. You guys want to? Don't let me just have the final word on that. Someone else is going to wade in.
We're good.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on that.
I couldn't help but bite. Sorry.
Cool. Just to kind of summarize things up, I want to ask you guys one more thing. I mean, I'm really curious, like, what's next on your plate? I know, Carolyn, you've got the new Mapquest app coming out. What's really piquing your interest right now?
I don't know. Right now, we're so focused on the new app. We have this amazing roadmap. So just more to come from Mapquest. Stay tuned. We're going to be more innovative than we have in the past.
Cool. And Duncan, where's the next big field for you?
Yeah, so we're, so we set out 3.5 years ago to really build we don't consider ourselves a mobile company. We don't consider ourselves a location company or a targeting company. We consider ourselves an audience company. We believe that there's been a tremendous opportunity to make sense of location, to understand audience, and we've kind of executed on that now. We've had this big vertical application of mobile advertising that's served us extremely well. And over the next quarter or so, we're going to announce, the future of where we're going, which is pretty much what we've always been saying. But we believe mobile is so much more than an app or location. Mobile is a completely new fundamental way, not only to understand consumers better and understand the consumer journey, but essentially a way to connect all of these touch points, be it TV, be it radio, be it online, be it out of home, be it digital out of home, be it retail purchases. Location and mobile is a way to pull these all together and understand these in one holistic way, and we're working with some of our big clients and some of our big partners towards that. So we believe that we're extremely excited about the future and about what we're focusing on next year.
And Lee, what's on the horizon?
Sure, and I see the time sign, and so I'll go very quickly here, but Placecast, we're rolling out, we did this globally already in a few other countries, but we're bringing this to the US very, very soon, probably in 2014. But the idea of being able to do card-linked offers with a financial service provider, so being able to actually link your credit card to a marketing program and then use that credit card at a various retailer and earn a discount that happens off of the POS system, so it all happens on the card side. So that's one thing, and then we also just rolled out our Place Ad platform, as you mentioned, which is now giving advertisers the ability to not only send alerts or text messages to consumers, but also serve mobile display creative that's all dynamic based on place and time and weather and other variables.
Cool stuff, cool stuff. Well, I want to thank you all for your time today. If you guys wouldn't mind giving them a hand.